Well, hello, hello, hello. This is I Bring It Every Day, and my name is Kelly. And let me see if I can get myself in here. Good morning, and thanks for coming. I appreciate you. So, this is a little thought for today. This is Motivation Monday, and the plan is to get people started. I want you to start your week off out on a positive note, and I want you to think positive and be positive. And then we're just going to talk about some few things that'll kind of motivate you and get started on the week. So let's see how it goes. And I see a chatter. Yay, Suzanne, welcome in. All right, now let's see here. What do I want to do? I want to, let's see if I can switch places here. Can I switch places? Nope, I can't switch places. Hang on. I'm going to remove this guy. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there you go. I found myself. All right, so welcome in. And today, what I'm going to talk about a little bit is some of the wisdom of the first ladies. And I found this book in Barnes and Noble, and it was very interesting because now the reason why what I was thinking about this is that a lot of the first ladies of the United States, they're the wives of the president. They don't get a whole lot of not that they're supposed to get a whole lot of attention, but the whole idea behind their term, like they actually serve a term sort of like the president does, because they're usually the first ladies will pick up some kind of a cause, and then they'll say, "Okay, I want to focus on this thing," and then this is what they do, right? So one of the things that I noticed is that throughout the years, a lot of these first ladies had it going on, but I don't think they were well appreciated by the people in the country, at least to my estimation. So I'm going to start this out. This is from Hillary Rodham Clinton. I know she is a divisive person, but I have to say, I think she has a good idea. And here it is. And she talks about literacy. So she had this speech on June 27th, 2017. And she said, "So reading is not just a nice thing to do, it's how we help give our children the best possible start in life. And if we're serious about raising curious, empathetic, brave citizens, that starts with raising readers." So, yeah. And it's funny because I think, unfortunately, in this country, what's happening is that a lot of people are not reading anymore, you know? And I think because we're so stuck on, the computer or social media or whatever, it's kind of crazy, right? So I think that this reading is, we really, if you have young children or babies or toddlers or infants or whatever, she's saying that really getting people to be curious, empathetic, and brave citizens, you have to start with raising a reader. So, very interesting there. I thought that was cool. All right. So, and let me think, let me know what you think in the chat if you guys are, like I said, I like to thank all the people who come in to support the I Bring It Every Day channel, and then we'll go from there. Yes. Now here's another one. This is Barbara Bush, and I think Barbara Bush was another one that did not get too much credit for anything while she was in office under George H.W. Bush. And she said, "If human beings are perceived as potentials rather than problems, as possessing strengths instead of weaknesses, as unlimited rather than dull and unresponsive, then they thrive and grow to their capabilities." Yeah. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. That's awesome. Yeah, that's for sure. So I'm gonna do hers again. Hers was a little wordy. It was a little bit clunky, but here it is. If human beings are perceived as potentials rather than problems, as possessing strengths instead of weaknesses, as unlimited rather than dull and unresponsive, then they thrive and grow to their capabilities. So that's a really big thing. And I think, once again, it is expectations. You have to set expectations very early. You know what I mean? And she's saying, if you think of people as problems, it's very, very tricky. So they're never going to come into any kind of potential, you know. So I'm just going to make this list real quick here. And then I'm just going to, these are just some thoughts for today. So let me see, let's take this paper. Yeah, I'll keep one of these underneath. Okay, so Hillary Rodham Clinton was saying, if you want to raise, empathetic, curious people, individuals, you want to, they should be, you got to read, so they have to make them readers. So there we go. And then Barbara Bush said, you have to set set a high expectation, for people, or else they're going to live up to what you set, or set a higher, I'm going to put higher expectation for people. So this is Barbara Bush, and this is Hillary Rodham Clinton. Yeah. So those are two things, right? Okay. But I thought that was good. Okay. Oh, here's another one from Barbara Bush. Let's give her another one. She said the American dream is about equal opportunity for everyone who works hard. If we don't give everyone the ability to simply read and write, oh, so we're back to literacy again, then we aren't giving everyone an equal chance to succeed. So once again, literacy is the jam. You know what I mean? Literacy. I'm just gonna put that there. Literacy. Once again, it goes back to literacy. So these are some things to think about. All right, now, and that's Barbara Bush again. You know, Barbara Bush. All right. So you see that there's a theme here. Literacy. And then I also want you to think about, how do you get back to literacy? Because I feel like we've moved away from literacy because we spend so much time on the computer. And I think people are like, I'm guilty of it. Watching the cat videos. I love them. But you don't gain any IQ points by watching cat videos. All right. Oh boy, here's another one. Let's do, hang on just a second here. Okay. Ooh, I got a little tickle in my throat. Okay, here we go. This is Michelle Obama. So she said she went to a global conversation on girls' education in Washington, D.C. on October 11th, 2016. This is from Glamour magazine. And she said, education is a very personal thing for me. As I tell girls whenever I meet them, I wouldn't be here, sitting here, not just in this chair, but in the life that I have, if it weren't for my education. I know that when you hear the phrase, knowledge is power, it's true. All right, now. Yeah. And I can just speaking on education, with the Obamas, they both had, advanced degrees. So did the Clintons, you know. Bush is not so sure. I don't think so. But their education kind of got them where they were. Yeah. Oh, hello, Terry. Good to see you. Good morning. Yes. Here we go. I love this. Thanks, Suzanne. Mindless social media should be consumed with moderation, just like unhealthy foods. Oh, wow. That is really good. That is really good. And I will say, just to kind of speak to that a little bit more, and you can add your thoughts too as well, Terry, and anybody who's out there in the bushes. It's just that yeah, it's really weird. I am very conflicted about social media. Now the thing is, I will say I don't I create content more than I watch these days. And the biggest thing for me is with YouTube, especially in the very beginning, it was very educational. So if there was something you needed to learn, or you got some tips, it kind of helps you out. But over time, I think it's evolved, just like some of the other platforms where they do more kind of drama, fakery. There's a lot of fake stuff out there, a lot of fake drama, a lot of real drama, a lot of fake drama. And so a lot of people are consuming those things, and I call it the things where you lose IQ points when you watch them. And not that IQ is everything, but I swear to you, what you consume really does have an effect on your life and your body and your mind. So you really have to be careful about what you consume. So to Suzanne's point there, the mindless social media should be consumed in moderation, unlike healthy foods. And there's as a lot of you may or may not know, one of my I haven't really spoken much about the food as of late. But the thing is, I've gotten well, so I have a little passion about food, and it sort of evolved over time, just because basically I had gotten bad food in one of the in one of the towns that I was living in consistently. It happened about 3 or 4 times, buying bad food, bad meat, bad poultry, and it really changed my view of eating meat and poultry. Like, I'm not saying I'm vegetarian, because I didn't grow up that way, and it's really hard to make that switch. But it has definitely made me rethink eating flesh. And this is just my little aside here. But but moderation is really interesting, because I think over time, in fact, and I'm glad you said that, Suzanne, moderation, that is a word that I don't think people know anything about. So let's take a look at the word moderation. I like it. I'm going to look at this right now. I'm going to, let's see. Okay, here we go. Moderation. I'm looking this up because I really think this is interesting. I like this. This is a good, I think we're going in a good direction here. So, like I said, when you take in all that negative TV, reality TV, a lot of it's negative. And, so all that stuff, gets into you. You know what I mean? It really does. So you really have to watch your frame of mind, because it's not good. Okay. Oh, what the heck does that mean? Okay. So this is the process. So moderation. My poor marker is starting to die. So this is yeah, what do we mean by moderation? So it's so you're avoiding the avoidance of excess. I'm just going to leave it at that. Of excess or extremes. I like this too, extremes. Because I think that a lot of people really don't have that. Yeah, moderation. What is that? Yeah, I think that's really, really a good point. So it really, with anything in life, like, moderation is the deal, right? Yep. So, but this is really important. So that's why. So when I always say to people, um, consume. Like I said, I like YouTube better than a lot of the other platforms. Instagram is okay too. There's a lot of good food stuff over there, and food information. And but it's interesting that you don't get as much on TikTok and some of the other ones, from what I've seen anyway. I'm not really a TikToker, but the whole thing is, yeah, you want to avoid excess of anything, whether that be food, you know everything, right? everything in life, especially things that are very, very negative, you know. So I like that, Suzanne. Thank you so much. Yeah, and it is hard to teach, moderation. So that's what this means, avoiding excess, and if you look at, a lot of, especially people in the USA, I don't know what the percentage of obesity is. It changes, but it's definitely high. Just looking at people, you know what I mean? All right. So there we go. So that's kind of what we're talking about. But yeah, moderation. So thank you, Suzanne, for doing that. And I saw a couple people came in. I saw Liz. Thank you for coming in. And Wellness for Frugal Mama. Thanks for coming in. And Butteroll Boutique. Good to see you. Okay. So now let's continue. So like I said, so the first thing we talked about was literacy, why literacy is really important. And then this moderation in this social media. Why is that important? So like I said, with anything, you want to make sure that you consume positive things. Because like I said, the negativity runs into you. And I noticed there's a lot of depression with people and social media. And maybe if you want to, put in the chat why you think that is. I have some theories about it, but there's definitely some depression that comes along the way with this. And I don't recall, and maybe people didn't talk about depression, in earlier times. I don't know. But I just think social media makes a lot of people uh, depressed because they're comparing themselves to other people. But then the thing you have to realize is that a lot of it is fake, in my opinion. Yeah. All right now. Okay, now here's Lady Bird Johnson. So we're talking about the first ladies and some of the wisdom that they impart. This is all sort of relating to knowledge, learning, and education. So Lady Bird Johnson, this is February 25th, 1966, and she's at the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa. And she says, education is a debt to be repaid with the gift of self. But we do not have to look at this as a painful obligation. Rather, each of us should choose a challenge that will make our own life richer and happier. Then work so that at the end of the day, we feel excited instead of tired. Ooh, I like this. Excited over what we accomplished today and what awaits us tomorrow. Yes, yes. And it's interesting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lady Bird Johnson, but she was under Lyndon Johnson. Well, her husband was Lyndon Johnson, and she was the first lady right after Kennedy, actually, when Kennedy was assassinated. And but the interesting thing is, and I don't know if it's interesting or if it's good or bad, but Lyndon Johnson and a lot of the presidents would record their phone conversations on tape. And I don't know why they recorded their phone conversations, but the thing that was interesting about Lady Bird Johnson was that they had, in my opinion, kind of an interesting relationship. And there's a couple of documentaries out about them, and she used to critique his speeches. And I remember the one time I saw this speech, and he gave a speech, and then she called him up, and the way he answered the telephone was kind of telling. He picked up the phone, he goes, "Yes, ma'am," and I went, "Oh snap!" And and she was like, "Lyndon, that speech you gave about whatever it was, you made three or four mistakes, and I'm going to tell you what they are." And I was like, "Wow!" And she broke down the speech and gave him notes. I thought that was like amazing. But he was like taking notes. It was very interesting. But it's funny these relationships. When you see like a public persona versus what's behind the scenes is very interesting. But like I said, I'm gonna read her quote one more time. It's a little bit long, but I like it. So she says, education is a debt to be repaid with the gift of self. But we do not have to look on this as a painful obligation. Rather, each of us should choose a challenge that will make our own life richer and happier. Then work so that at the end of the day, we feel excited instead of tired. Excited over what we accomplished today and what awaits us tomorrow. And that was at the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, February 25th, 1966. So she's saying, once you become educated, you should give back, basically. And I think that's great. I love it. So anyway, but that little story about her I thought was really interesting. And if you look at some of those documentaries, it's pretty cool. And I like to watch them from time to time. It's funny, I can't tell you what documentary because it's been a couple of years, but it was interesting. So let's see. We have Shatika came in. So grand rising, blessings to everyone. Thank you. We have Miss Renee Unraveled. Good morning. Good to see you. And I think that's it. Yep, those are the two that came in. And everybody's saying hi. Okay, so Suzanne's saying if more poets and scholars are flooding social media, I believe our society would be better. Ooh, okay, hold on. Hit the wrong button here. I like it. Yeah, and I think that's the problem. So I'm hoping with my little neck of the woods here on YouTube, I'm trying to sort of get people thinking more positively. You know what I mean? But yeah, this moderation is interesting. But that's really the whole thing. Yeah, I think a lot more people should. But I think also, like I know for a fact I know of people that feel like they're too good to be on social media. And it's not me, but there's other people. And they're fairly well educated and stuff and they're like, "Nope, I'm not doing it." And I said, "Boy, you're the one that people need to see, for sure." Mhm. Yep. And I think people need to see more positive things. Yeah. Yep, yep. So anyway, so there's that. So that's Lady Bird Johnson. So let's see. I'm going to just put here. I forget her real name. Forget Lady Bird Johnson. So she's saying, education, means that you give back. You know, you re, you yeah, you give back. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think like I know like Frugal Mama does a lot, and but that's really important is to give back to the community, what you've learned. Yep. So there it is. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right now. Let's see. All right. But the literacy, yeah, that really hit me, between the eyes. I said, man, literacy is so important. And I don't know, like I said, I just don't get the sense that people are reading as much anymore. And let me know what you think in the chat. I wonder. Let's see. Oh, nice. All right, so this is oops, sorry about that. I'm knocking my table here. So this is going a little bit off the case, but they're talking about these are first ladies talking about each other, and very interesting. So this is Rosalind Carter talking about Pat Nixon, and this was in Time Magazine, May 5th, 2016. And she said, in the years after leaving the White House, I've come to know Pat's daughters, Trisha and Julie, and realize how much they reflect her fine character and what a wonderful mother she was. I especially admired Pat's poise in the face of tremendous challenges. She was always gracious and courteous in every situation, and people everywhere, including me, felt a warm connection to her. So that's kind of the thing I think when you pass on, I hope that that's what you want people to say, about you when you're gone. Do your kids, reflect the type of person that you are? And that so I thought that was a beautiful tribute to Pat Nixon, and she had some pretty famous struggles, in the White House and after the White House, but and I think she did okay at the end. I think she did, but that's a beautiful tribute. Yes. Okay. Oh, I like this. So Buttero Boutique is saying yes. That's my main purpose for being on YouTube to share what I've learned. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? I think, thank you so much, Doretha or Butter Boutique. Yeah. And I think in some ways we've kind of forgotten that. And like I said, I'm guilty of watching the cat videos. They're mindless and entertaining, but am I gaining any IQ points by watching them? I don't know. But that's why I like YouTube, is the fact that you get a chance to learn some things. Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. Excuse me. All right, let's talk about another one. So that's Rosalind Carter. Yeah, she was I kind of dug the Carters. She has two. Yeah, she has two ends. Rosalind Carter. So she loved. She had love for Patricia Nixon. Hold on a second. Having trouble here. Just Pat Nixon. Mm-hmm. Love for Pat Nixon. Yeah. Okay. There we go. I love it. That was awesome. All right. Oh, this is interesting. Here's another one. This is Richard Nixon actually talking about his wife, Pat Nixon. And this was 1975. And he said, I remember through all of our campaigns, whether it was a receiving line or whether it was going to a fence at the airport, she was the one that always insisted on shaking that last hand, not simply because she was thinking of that vote, but because she simply could not turn down that last child or that last person. So, man, that's amazing. Pat Nixon. Yes. Okay. Excuse me. I was out in the yard and I'm like scratchy, so I apologize. Yes. Oh, this is a fun and interesting motivation today, Kelly. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm kind of going from a different way. Like I found this book and I'll show it to you. But it's called The Essential. I'm going to hide this price tag. It's kind of, but it's called The Essential. There we go. The Essential Wisdom of the First Ladies. It's got a picture of Barbara Bush at the top, Jackie Kennedy, then Eleanor Roosevelt, and then Michelle Obama at the bottom. And it's edited by Carol Kelly. I think it's, I don't know if it's, hmm, I think it's Ganji, Gangie. So Carol Kelly Ganji. So pretty cool. And when I was in school, they were always telling you to learn stuff about the presidents, but I think the wives are interesting as well. Hmm. Because they're not elected, right? And they have to serve, or they should serve, and it's really interesting. Okay, all right. So here is okay. Oh, all right. Let's do this one. This is Betty Ford. Now, Betty Ford was another one that had some struggles in her lifetime, specifically with addiction. And this is George H.W. Bush talking about Betty Ford shortly after her death, July 8th, 2011. And he says, no one confronted life struggles with more fortitude or honesty. And as a result, we all learned from the challenges she faced. The Betty Ford Center, which has already which already has helped change the lives of thousands of people, will be her lasting legacy of care and concern. So that's George H.W. Bush talking about Betty Ford. Yeah, so the Betty Ford Center, that was and that has gone on and on and on, and there's been so many people that have gone through that, for addiction. Yep. So let's see, I'm going to move this. At Betty Ford. So this is George H.W. Bush about Betty Ford. So he talks about Betty Ford legacy. Legacy. Yeah. So then you always think, like, what's your legacy going to be? You know what I mean? All right. Now, this is Bill Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton talking about Betty Ford after her death. And this is July 9th, 2011. And then they said, as a staunch advocate for women's and equal rights, Betty paved the way for generations of women to follow. Her courage, compassion, and commitment to helping our nation deal with drug and alcohol abuse and addiction helped thousands of people to a successful recovery. And in the process, she helped save countless families. Yep. And this is Hillary Rodham Clinton, and Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton. So once again, talking about the legacy, leading back to the legacy that she left. So what are you going to leave? What's your legacy going to be? You know? All right. Let's see. Okay, here's another one. Oh boy, this is a good one too. So this is from the Carter Center. So this is talking about Rosalind Carter. And I have not been there. I guess it's in Georgia. It must be in Georgia. It says former First Lady Rosalind Carter has worked for more than 4 decades to improve the quality of life for people around the world. Today, she's a leading advocate for mental health, caregiving, early childhood immunization, human rights, and conflict resolution through her work at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia. So there it is. Yep, so Rosalind Carter, it's pretty cool. Let's see. All right now. I like it. Oh, okay. Let's do. Got to do Barack Obama because he and he and Michelle Obama have an interesting relationship, and not in a bad way. I just think it's just interesting to watch the two of them. But anyway, this is something from Barack Obama. So there we go. So let's talk about your legacy. So let's see. Okay, so this is Barack Obama's farewell address at McCormick Place, Chicago, in January 10th, 2017. Okay, and he said, Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, girl of the South Side, for the past 25 years, you have not only been my wife and mother of my children, you have been my best friend. You took on a role you didn't ask for and made it your own with grace and with grit and with style and good humor. You made the White House a place that belongs to everybody. And the new generation sets its sights higher because it has you as a role model. So you have made me proud, and you have made the country proud. And that's Barack Obama talking about his wife, Michelle Obama. So, Barack Obama, you know, regarding Michelle Obama. Okay. Yep. So interesting. All right, now. She's got 2 L's. Yes. Michelle Obama. Okay. All right. So there we go. So very interesting. And it's good to see people when they have a good relationship, right? All right, now. Now let's go to. So we talked about education. We talked about a little bit about legacy. And let's do one more, I think, today. And then we'll. This is where it gets interesting. So let's talk about government and democracy. And I see the Bud Files. Good morning. Good to see you. All right, here we go. So now this is. Ooh, I like this. Okay, so this is Abigail Adams writing to John Adams, May 9th, 1776. So she said, a government of good laws, well administered, should carry with them the fairest prospect of happiness to a community, as well as to individuals. So one more time. A government of good laws, well administered, should carry with them the fairest prospect of happiness to a community, as well as to individuals. And that's Abigail Adams writing to her husband. All right, now. Now here's this is Eleanor Roosevelt, and I always think she's a smart lady. Um, she said, "Democracy requires both discipline and hard work. It is not easy for individuals to govern themselves. It is one thing to gain freedom, but no one can give you the right to self government. Then you must earn for yourself by long discipline." Woo, that's pretty intense. Let me see if I can do this. So she's basically saying democracy requires discipline and hard work. And we always have to remember that. And I think that's the main part of that quote. But I like that. I'm going to put that in there. So let's put that in. I like this. This is Eleanor Roosevelt. And I like she said a lot. She has a lot of nice quotes. Her name is so long, Roosebelt. Okay. Eleanor Roosevelt. So anyway, so let's see. So democracy requires discipline. I like this. Discipline and hard work. And my marker is dying. But that's okay. Hard work. You got to keep that in mind every day. All right. That's 1963. All right. All right. Here we go. Here's Hillary Rodham Clinton. Commencement address at Drew University in New Jersey, May 18th, 1996. She said, in a democracy, government is the people. So renewing our faith in government I'm sorry, let me try that again. Renewing our faith in our government means renewing our faith in ourselves and in our ability to perfect our union. Let me do that again. So in a democracy, government is the people. So renewing our faith in our government means renewing our faith in ourselves and in our ability to perfect our union. Okay. So she's saying, let's see. I may have to go to a new one. Let me find another one here. Get another page. This is an interesting one. So this is basically saying, if I'm reading this, I'm extrapolating a little bit here. But she's saying the government is the people. And so we have to perfect our government by renewing faith in ourselves. So she's saying the government equals the people. So in other words, we have to I think she's saying we have to sort of uplift ourselves, by perfecting ourselves, by we have to work on ourselves to get this government right. And I kind of agree with that. Is the way I read this. Hillary Rodham Clinton. Yeah. Okay. Now here's Jacqueline Kennedy. And then I'll get back to the chat after I read this one. So Jacqueline Kennedy, this is a television interview conducted by Henry Fonda, November 2nd, 1960. And she said, "We must set a good example of democracy at home if we are to be leaders of the free world and enjoy the friendship and respect of other people." All right, Jackie, I feel you. I'm going to write this one down. So I've been really thinking about this in light of some situations that have been going down. Okay, I'm gonna write this down. So, and they say, I don't know if she said we, but she said we must set a good example Need to get a new marker of democracy at home. All right. Yep. If we are to be leaders of the, if we are to be, and I'm running out of room, leaders of the free world. Oh, yeah. I'm going to stop right there. Because I like this. I think this is good. And let's meditate on that part. And I'm going to, there's more. But anyway, so there it is. We must we must set a good example of democracy at home if we are to be leaders of the free world and enjoy the friendship and respect of other people. So that's it right there. And what I'll do is I'll put these in the description. It's going to be a long description. Gonna do some serious typing. But anyway, there it is. All right. So let's see. So, oh yeah. Oh, so okay. Thanks, Doretha. I appreciate you saying I love it. Yes, and beautiful. I love. Yeah, isn't that amazing? And Suzanne saying, I believe all successes require discipline and hard work and moderation. I love that. Yeah, and it's interesting, like the whole hard work thing. What does that mean? Like I always wonder, where do you cross the line? Yeah, with the hard work and the moderation. Yeah, I always wonder about that myself. Yeah, and that's something to think about. You want to work hard, but you have to sort of play hard. So there's some moderation there. But yeah, there it is. But anyway, that's Jackie Kennedy. She said that about democracy. And that is huge. That is huge. Ah, let's see. Oh, this we'll do one more, and I think, yeah, we're getting close to the end here. And let me know, let me know if any of the, hopefully this will resonate with everybody. But let me know in the comments if you're in the replay team, and everybody in the chat. I appreciate you giving me a little feedback too. All right. Oh. Ooh. Okay. Here's Hillary Rodham Clinton. Now, this is a long one. I'm kind of digging this one too. And she said back September 16th, 2018, in The Atlantic, the article was called American Democracy is in Crisis. Hillary Rodham Clinton. And she said, how fragile our experiment in self government is. And when viewed against the sweep of human history, how fleeting. Yep, because we're only 250 years old, right? That's pretty young in terms of the world. Democracy may be our birthright as Americans, but it's not something we can ever take for granted. Every generation has to fight for it, has to push us closer to that more perfect union. That time has come again. So let me do that one more time. She's very wordy, but she's interesting. Okay, so Hillary Rodham Clinton, American Democracy is in Crisis, The Atlantic, September 16, 2018. How fragile our experiment in self government is. And when viewed against the sweep of human history, how fleeting. Democracy may be our birthright as Americans, but it's not something we can ever take for granted. Every generation has to fight for it, has to push us closer to that more perfect union. That time has come again. Yes. Yes. So, love it. Yes, yes. All right. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But anyway, I can keep going. There's just so much in here. And maybe I'll come back and revisit this. But I say that, like I said, that a lot of these first ladies had it going on. And, you know, it's a shame that, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that, Hillary Clinton was the answer, but I have to say, she has a decent mind. Like, I think she thinks about things, which I enjoy. I always say, I really appreciate people who sort of have a bigger picture, on life. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is what it is. So Suzanne said the creation of well balanced individuals is very complex, in my opinion. Yeah, that's for sure. And and like I said, I'm sort of a moderate person in terms of a lot of things. Just in terms of life, like how I live my life, how I eat, how I work, how I exercise, how I deal with my kids, you know, but I know like a lot of people are very extreme, and I think people who are extreme, get us in trouble. You know what I mean? And so what's that line of extremism? It's hard to figure out what that is. But we're seeing right now in our country that the extremists have sort of I don't know. They've really stopped people from thinking about the big picture. So, and that's what the definition of moderation is: the avoidance or of excess or extremes. And I think that's something that I always have to keep in mind, just in general. And I tell that to my kids too, just to just be careful of not overspending, overeating, these kind of things. But moderation is tough for a lot of people, I think, in trying to figure out what that is. Yeah. So it's very interesting. Hmm. All right, let's see. You know what I'll do? Okay. Oh, my stomach's growling. I didn't eat. But I'll give you just a little. Let's talk about. I'm going to find Lady Bird Johnson, because we talked about her. I don't know as much about her as the other people, but I just wanted to get back to her. Let's see, Lady Bird Johnson. They have a little bio in the back, and let's go here. Kennedy, Truman, Roosevelt. Where is she? Coolidge. Hold on. I'm going to find Lady Bird Johnson. Well, first, okay, so let's do this first. So Barbara Bush, I'll start with her. So Barbara Bush lived from 1925 to 2018. She was born in New York City and grew up in Rye, New York. She met George H.W. Bush when she was 16, and they fell in love immediately. Wow. And they delayed the wedding because of his service in World War II. They married in January of 1945. They had 6 children together, losing their daughter Robin to leukemia when she was 3 years old. A true partner, she supported and advised her husband throughout his illustrious political career, and she served as First Lady from 1989 to 1993. Beloved by the public from the start, she made literacy her primary focus and ultimately developed the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy. After leaving the White House, she wrote her autobiography and spent time with her family in Texas and Maine. In April 2018, at the age of 92, and with her health in decline, she passed away peacefully, surrounded by her family. Oh boy. Yeah, that's a story right there. So she was Barbara Pierce Bush. Okay. Now let's go to, I'm going to talk about Hillary Rodham Clinton. She was born in 1947, born in Chicago. She met Bill Clinton when they were both students at Yale Law School. A polarizing figure, despite devoting her life to public service, she worked as a young lawyer to protect women and children, and then served as the First Lady of Arkansas, the First Lady of the United States, a U.S. Senator from New York, Secretary of State under President Obama, and she was a 2-time presidential candidate. As First Lady, she was a key advisor to Bill Clinton and used her platform to continue advocating for the rights of women and children at home and abroad. A devoted mother to their daughter Chelsea and wife to her husband, she stood by him through impeachment proceedings that stemmed from an alleged affair with Monica Lewinsky, a White House intern. After losing the presidential election in 2016, despite winning the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes, she started a political action organization called Onward Together and published What Happened 2017, an account of her experiences of the 2016 presidential election. Yeah, that's amazing. Pretty interesting story. Now, where the heck is? Let's see. Let's do Pat Nixon because we talked about her. So Thelma Pat Catherine Ryan Nixon, 1912 through 1993. Born in Nevada, she grew up on a family farm in California. By the age of 18, she had lost both her parents. She worked her way through college, earning her degree in 1937. She met Richard Nixon, married him in 1940, and had two daughters, Tricia and Julie. Pat was an enthusiastic campaigner and tirelessly supported her husband throughout his long political career. As First Lady, she embarked in an initiative to promote volunteerism and was a charming hostess who worked to make the White House more accessible to the public. During and after the Watergate scandal, Pat stood by her husband and maintained her dignity. She died in July of 1993 at the age of 81. All right. Oh my. You know what's funny? I don't see. Hang on. I'm going to find her. Oh no. Okay. Well, let's do Michelle Obama. It's funny they don't have one on Lady Bird Johnson. Well, I am bummed. Okay. Let's keep going. Here's Michelle Obama. So, Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama, born 1964. Born in Chicago, she met Barack Obama when she was his mentor. Oh, this is interesting. At the law firm Sidney and Austin. They began dating later in the summer and married in October of 1992. She was his boss. That's amazing. Okay. They have two daughters, Malia and Sasha. She served as First Lady from 2009 to 2017. She was a close confidant and advisor to her husband and used her platform as First Lady to focus on issues such as women's rights, education, children's health and well being, and support for the military community. A fashion icon and beloved figure, she went on to write the best selling memoir, Becoming, in 2018. All right, and let's go to Jackie Kennedy because I know this will be good too. Let's see, I know she's in here. Just a sec. Uh-oh. Yeah, oh, here we go. Jacqueline Lee Bouvier Kennedy Onassis, 1929 to 1994. Born in Southampton, New York, she'd been educated at the best schools and was working as an inquiring photographer when she met John F. Kennedy. They married in September of 1953 and had four children, Caroline, John, and two children who died in infancy. She served as First Lady from 1961 until her husband's assassination in 1963. As First Lady, she captivated the nation with her beauty, grace, intelligence, and poise. An advocate for the arts, she used her platform as First Lady to bring artists and musicians from all over the world to the White House. She also carefully oversaw the restoration of the White House and reintroduced pieces of historical significance into the presidential mansion. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, she bravely led the country through the dark days of mourning. She moved to New York City and married businessman Aristotle Onassis in 1968. She became an editor at several New York publishing houses and was active in various historical preservation campaigns. An icon and an inspiration to people all over the world, she died from non-Hodgkin lymphoma in May of 1994 at the age of 64. Oh, here we go. And now Lady Bird Johnson. This is the one I was looking for. Here we go. Yeah. So her name is Claudia, and nickname Ladybird, Alta Taylor Johnson, 1912 to 2007. Born in Karnak, Texas, she met Lyndon Johnson in 1934, and after his intense courtship, wow, they married in November of that year. After suffering multiple miscarriages, she gave birth to two daughters, Linda and Lucy. From the beginning, she was utterly devoted to her husband and to helping him advance in his political career. Coming into the White House after the assassination of President Kennedy, she did her best to assume the role of First Lady in traumatic circumstances. Her primary focus as First Lady was a sweeping beautification program that started in Washington and grew to encompass the entire nation. A program that included preservation, conservation, and environmental protection. She was a close confidant and advisor to her husband in private and a calming influence on him throughout his entire political career and during the darkest days of his presidency. After leaving the White House, she continued to devote her time to environmental causes and to her children and grandchildren. Her health started to fail in 1986, and she died in July of 2007 at the age of 94. All right, now. So those are the ones. Now, did I talk about, let's see. I'm going to do, let me do Rosalind Carter. Now, her real name is Eleanor Rosalind Smith Carter. She's born in 1927, and she did pass. This book must have been printed before that. But she was born in Plains, Georgia, and she had known Jimmy Carter since she was young, but didn't begin dating him until after her freshman year of college. The two fell in love and married in 1946. They had four children together. A partner in every sense of the word, Rosalind was her husband's closest advisor throughout his political career. She served as First Lady from 1997 through 1991. From the beginning, she was intent on getting involved with substantive issues and making a difference. Her main initiative was to bring awareness and changes to the mental health system. And she was the honorary chairperson of the President's Commission on Mental Health. After leaving the White House, she and her husband opened the Carter Center based in Atlanta, which has been promoting human rights and improving health for decades. And then I'll throw in too, they worked on Habitat for Humanity, and they actually were hammering nails and working physically on houses for the poor. So Habitat for Humanity is. So anyway, so those are the first ladies that we talked about today. I think I covered all of them. I finally found these ladies were amazing, and I have to say, a lot of times they don't get a lot of good press. The first ladies, but I just wanted to you know just leave you guys with some positive motivation, and specifically talking about what these women were thinking about. So just kind of as a summary, a lot of like literacy was big. Mental health with Rosalind Carter. um let's see, Betty Ford, with her the Betty Ford Center. Hillary Clinton for just talking about being of service, in government and doing the best that you can. um Pat Nixon. The biggest thing that I noticed about her was that people had a lot of love for her, and she had love for her family. And Barbara Bush talked about literacy and also setting higher expectations on people so that they will produce higher expectations. They'll produce more. Yep. And then let's see, Jacqueline Kennedy, doing the beautification of the house, of the White House, and just, focusing on the arts. And this is half of her quote, but she basically said, "We must set a good example of democracy at home if we are to be leaders of the free world." And I'm, the quote's longer, but that's kind of where we're at, and and that really resonates with me today. So let me see before I close. Oh, so I saw MDL just came in. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you coming in, and I appreciate everybody who supports the I Bring It Every Day channel. It's yeah, it's really interesting. So I've been so this is what happens. I've been sort of thinking about different ways that we can keep ourselves motivated, and it's hard because you have your good days and your bad days, but I think just looking at some of the lives of positive people is beautiful, you know and I really think the free world, there we go, and I really think that's the deal, you know what I mean. So Jacqueline Bouvier, Kennedy Onassis, wow. She's got a lot of names there. There we go. But there it is. So let's see. But yeah, there it is. So once again, I want to say thank you to everybody who supports the I Bring It Every Day channel. I'm nothing without the subscribers and the viewers. And please, leave me a comment if you have any other thoughts. But I'm gonna revisit the first ladies soon. But like I said, I think these women really had a lot to offer. And I think if you're a first lady and you don't take advantage of that, not take advantage, but if you don't do good while you're in office, while your husband's in office, it's really, I don't know, like I feel like you're dropping a ball if you don't. And it seems like all these women did that. They did a little something while they were in there, even though they weren't required. And so I think that's beautiful. Yeah. All right now. So I think that's it. Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. Yes. Thanks, Kelly, for providing thought provoking content of value. I appreciate it. Yes. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So this is what happens when I have free time. And yeah, and really, and I'm not trying to be like goofy, but it's weird. You reach a point in life and you just go, what does all this mean? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I was like, what does all this mean? But it's interesting, and you want to have your life. I just think I want my life to have a little bit of meaning. I'm sort of a small little part of this internet, but I just hope that we can all continue to do good when you can. And I think it's awesome. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So there it is. So anyway, so please, like and share and pass this along if you think it's helpful. But I definitely think, for women, we all have to stick together, but definitely, as women, we need to stick together for sure. Yes. Yes, yes. Hmm. But peace and love to everybody. Have a great week. And, do something great and we'll check back in next week. So see you soon on the YouTube streets. Bye bye.